Let me tell you about this guy.
I'll tell you about this fucker right here.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good hint, but I guess not.
You got to be direct.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm going to need you to start, sir.
Gen X, you got to be direct. All right. So, welcome to the first ever episode of Your Generation.
Mine and yours.
Both of them, really. Gen X. So Gen X is 1965 to 1980. Some of the highlights of Gen X is going to be we're the MTV generation. We're latchkey kids. It means both of our parents worked, and we had a key, and we let ourselves into the house. But we had some great things. We had very colorful music. Cyndi Lauper started the MTV, obviously. The Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star. And we had WWF that actually mixed music with professional wrestling. So Cyndi Lauper and Hulk Hogan and Captain Lou Albano, Ultimate Warrior kind of crap. Yeah, you're like, what are these things?
I don't know who the those people are, but all right.
But we also had the space shuttle. We had the start of technology.
Now you're just making shit up.
We had the start of technology. So we're the first ones to actually have computers in the house. So that's kind of some of the highlights. There's a lot more things in there, but we don't need to go into.
Okay.
So what the hell is Gen Z? What have you done?
Good question. I don't think we've done much so far. So Generation Z is between 1997 and 2012. Debated. There's a couple of theories out there that it's 95 to 2010. Some of them say it's a little later, but most common 1997 2012. We have a lot of different names. It seems like they haven't quite figured out what we should be called. So Zoomers is a big one, playing on the whole boomers that do everything.
Okay.
The I generation because of the iPhone, Centennials, Post-Millennials, and my favorite, Homelanders, because the voice show. Big technoholics. We always had cell phones around us. We grew up with cell phones, regardless of if you had one in your house or not. We always grew up with them. iPhone was a big one, growing up with the smartphone really coming into play in our world and in our everyday life. We, some big things, like we watched our parents go through a recession in 2007, and all of us just went through COVID-19.
Which is because we had a recession. With Jimmy Carter, the gas lines, stagflation was invented.
Right.
Right. And then we had the AIDS epidemic.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and we grew up, a big thing with our generation is growing up with the smartphone and growing up with the social media. That's some of our defining moments in our generation, really.
We had street lights. Street lights came on. It was time to go home. If they're out for more than 15 minutes, you're getting your butt whooped.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't whip our butt quite as much.
No, we're busy doing other things. So you had some Twitter stuff?
Yeah, I do. So I think I want to get started right at the beginning here, kind of coming out strong. Our generation isn't typically known for that, but we're gonna do that.
Yeah, we're still guiding.
So
I don't know,
or at least most people don't think that we are.
He knows what these tweets are. I don't know what they are. He just says, "Hey, I want to read some Twitter stuff to you." So
we'll he was like, "What the is Twitter? I only know what Facebook is." So I'm gonna read some tweets about each generation that I thought were either pretty spot on or pretty hilarious. So I'm gonna read them for the group. We'll start with the Gen X tweets. So the first one is by Usted. It says, every generation has a painful breakup. Gen Z and TikTok, millennials and Vine, Gen X and cultural relevance.
It's funny. It's kind of true. And I think for me, what makes it even funnier is that we don't care.
Yeah, exactly. You don't give a So it definitely makes sense. So one about Gen Z this is from Belly. Gen Z culture is making an Instagram account for your disposable camera, which I thought was pretty accurate. Most Instagram accounts that I see now that have the most follows, I think one that came up with that was really big was like And everyone's gonna hate me from not remembering, but one of the more famous celebrities had a huge Instagram account, and so somebody posted a picture of an egg, and they said, "Get this egg more followers than this person." I don't remember who it was off the top of my head, and I'll put it in posts like on the video of who it was, but yeah.
I remember reading about that.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We make Instagram accounts for our cats, our dogs, our turtles. We just make Instagram accounts.
I thought it was just for hot chicks on boats that some dude flew her over there.
Nope, not just that. We do the animals. Somebody else does the hot chicks on boats.
Probably millennial.
Yeah. Another one for Gen X. This was Ted Lasso Stan said the Gen X urge to say I'm not a boomer. I think one of the funnier things that I found out was that, going through these tweets is that really seems to be the only thing that gets to Gen X is that calling them a boomer. Other than that, there's really nothing else. I couldn't find tweets about Gen X. I couldn't find a bunch of mean things. Like it was pretty difficult finding stuff about Gen X.
Well, we're kind of one of the things that we have been called is the forgotten generation. It's kind of weird because like the boomers, they were either having a purpose or inventing a purpose. It was like flower power, what was it, free love, protest a war, that kind of junk. And so that's kind of their thing. And then we came after that. So, the war is over. The economy after Carter kicked up. We were just kind of a fun-loving group. So we didn't really care. I mean, we were watching the boomers at work, and then boomers like working 27 hours a day, and they're like, if you follow my lead, you can be in this chair someday. And we're like, thank you for letting me know what it is that did that to you so I don't make the same mistake. But yeah, I think we like to just have a good time. I mean, we have our serious moments, like, we invented technology.
Yeah, like right now, we're thinking funny, silly things and just want to educate everybody.
we enjoy it, but it's kind of like we like to kick back and we like to watch. We like to eat our popcorn. We like to, well, at least I personally, I like to throw the little seed of conflict out there for two people to fight over and just kick back and watch.
Just watch them kill each other about it. Yeah. Also, for the earlier, it was Kylie Jenner. So they have more popular than Kylie Jenner. Yeah. So the next one that I have for Gen Z is Gen Z culture is hearing a really famous song from the 80s and only knowing it from some movie like Paul Blart Mall Cop.
or commercials.
Yep, commercials. Or the big one is TikTok. Like most of the music, it seems like there's a lot of people my age, like the first thing that we're hearing it from is TikTok. And some of it's older, some of it's newer, but hearing a lot from like a movie or something like that rather than the original song first and then going back and listening to the original seems to be the common way like music's found a lot.
Yeah. And actually I watched some YouTube reaction videos to music.
Mm-hmm.
And it is interesting how Gen Zers are hearing things for the first time, and they're like, I thought this other one was the original,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I watched a couple of those too. There's a lot of course, TikToks about that, where it's like their kids come up to their parents and they're like, oh, look at this original song, and they play it, and parents are like, yeah, I heard the original, and it's definitely not this, that's for sure. Okay, so the next one that I have that last one was from Mikey. So this one is from Alex. The Gen X urge to start posting all my grievances on Facebook and saying shit like, let's just say you know who you are.
So, yes, I'm on Facebook, and there is a lot of complaining on Facebook.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but everybody, especially you get like the nice, like, white Christian women who like hop on there and they're just like, they just post everything and post their whole diary on
Karens.
Well, okay, that's one word for them, right? But not all of them are Karens, but it's just so many. It's so funny because like growing up in the gen that like didn't have the computer in the home, and then you guys, adopted the computer in the home, whatever. We don't dive into like all of the social media. It seems to be like Facebook, which I'm assuming is probably because it's the closest thing to MySpace and what you grew up with.
MySpace was better. You can make your own soundtrack.
Don't let them hear you say that.
I know. I'm going to have you are no longer allowed to use Facebook for the next 2 hours.
Yeah, you're going to get banned.
But to go back to that whole Facebook thing, and there's definitely something to that. I do it on occasion. Sometimes I'll make the random post accusing a unknown person of something just to see how many people get mad and think it's about them.
I actually had an old boss who would do the same thing. They would purposely like just say something on there to get people stirred up, and roughly your age or so, and then just to see people posting and replying and all of that stuff. Yep, just stirring the pot. Exactly. Yeah, but it is kind of funny how like that, that is the one thing is, what we would say is cringe. You guys posting it all on Facebook and all of that stuff. I do think it's interesting. So another one is from April Log. This is about Gen Z. Gen Z culture is your Postmates driver for getting your drink, but instead of being mad, you take it as a sign to drink more water.
Okay. I have a better. What's Postmates?
It's like DoorDash.
Okay. Oh, is this like a British thing then?
No, it's just another version of DoorDash. You got Postmates, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, all different ways to basically, we like subscription services. We don't want to pay $60 a month for cable TV, but damn sure we will pay $160 a month for 60 different streaming or food services or whatever that I feel tailored to me,
So maybe we'll get a producer or something, and we can do an episode where I actually introduce you to a grocery store.
No, I don't want to go in those things. Those things are old, nasty, and honestly, most of it is just, dealing with a robot now and, not talking to anybody in self-checkout, which I thought was interesting. So when I was preparing for this episode and all of that stuff, I thought it was interesting. I never thought about why I, actually enjoyed doing face-to-face stuff like this, or when I would go to work and have conversations. Is much easier for me to always have them face-to-face. But I guess it turns out the generation in between ours, millennials, they're much bigger on the wanting to do all of their conversations through a phone call or through a meeting online or whatever. Whereas Gen Z actually typically, statistically, prefers doing the face-to-face conversation and all of that stuff. Especially when it comes to doing meetings and stuff like that face-to-face, which I think is interesting.
I think, in fear of actually us getting along, I'll say it anyway. I think sometimes Gen Z gets a bad rap because they get roped into the millennials. And so, because nobody likes those guys.
Boomers and millennials, fuck them both.
So, but yeah, I feel like they're always trying to find shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I shouldn't have to go into the office.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting it's interesting to learn things about yourself that you didn't realize about yourself until you start looking at your generation oh, no wonder why they categorize it that way. That makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for Gen X, we have one from Allie, and it says, it's all fun and games having Gen X friends until they go and have Gen X opinions.
Because our level of political correctness is predominantly embarrassing for Gen Z.
Yeah, I would say that is something where, like, our generations definitely differ on, like, there's similarities. Obviously, you guys were our parents, right?
Mhm.
So you raised us. So there's a lot to say about, you guys instill, and however you say words, putting
Edit that out and fix it later. Fix it in post.
putting in your values in us as you raised us, right? But then there's the other part of it too, where it's like a lot of our, political views, or how accepting we are of people, or the political correctness, or whatever you want to call it, is very similar to millennials, very typically in line with millennials in that kind of view and structure.
Every generation tends to get a little bit more liberal, so it makes sense. But again, in fear of actually us getting along, is while I think your social liberalism is far-reaching for my taste,
Mm-hmm.
I do think you're more fiscally conservative than the millennial generation.
Yeah, and that's what I found out, like, looking through this, as well as kind of just looking at my own life and our friends versus, people that are 10 years older than me, or whatever, right? That our generation seems to have watched, we grew up watching a decent amount of, like, crisis, right? Like, you had 9/11, you had a pretty large recession from 07 to 09. You watch these things, fall, whatever. Now we have social media where everybody is becoming an influencer, and quite a large amount of people are actually making out of the so-called 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
right? Doing this. I think our generation, like, from what I've seen and from the little bit of research that I did, like, they're very conservative, like you said, on their money. They don't want to set themselves up for failure when it comes to their finances. They want to be stable in their job or in their career, whether it's, something they love, like being an influencer or whatever, or even just having a 9 to 5. They want to be stable. They don't want to, like, wake up every day knowing, oh, like, where's the money going to come from?
Right. But you guys aren't stingy and cheap. Like, when I was a kid growing up, we were stingy and cheap because we had a lot less access to things.
Right.
Because for me, 18 years old, moving out, it's a 2-bedroom apartment, and there's, 3 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right.
2 dudes sharing a room, and if there's a girl, she gets her own room. If it's 3 dudes, then the third dude that gets his own room is paying more in rent.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and the I would agree. Our generation, I think what happens with Gen Z is we want to be more conservative with our money, but we're also okay with spending a little bit more to try and get something that's better rather than, like, garbage. So, and because we grew up in an era where we have access to all of this social media, reviews, things like that on products, we can easily say, oh, okay, well, I can spend $50 more on this because it's got 3,000 more reviews and they're all much better rating. The other part of that is we tend to like to buy things that are, like, if it's a little bit more, but more along the lines of, like, our values, right? So, like,
yeah.
this subscription service thing, right? So we pay a little bit more a month to have, a subscription to, let's say, like, Spotify over something else. But Spotify tailors your songs very well to you and how you like to listen to music and select songs. And
I just gonna nod like I have a Spotify account.
So I noticed, like, my generation will typically do that if we feel like it's something that aligns with us or tailors to us specifically. Everything now is about trying to latch on to our gen's, like, consumer.
Yeah, and it's tough. I'm not like that at all. I was like, 6 people died doing this. I'm like, just 6? Sweet. But I kind of feel like Gen Z and the millennials, so I'll piss you off by lumping you guys together, all right? Have gone into this ultra sensitive, we're going to broadcast our values and we're going to place it on history so that we can be constantly in a state of anger over the history of this country and what things are doing. And I just see so much, this was a normal thing. This is how we did things. But now suddenly we're the devil type of thing.
Yeah. And I will say, I do think that is where we get lumped a lot in with millennials, because I think that the perception I think the perception about Gen Z is like, oh, we just want to like you said, just kind of like make our voice heard about this specific topic, whatever it is that's supposedly you guys are the devils and this is so different from you, right? And then and that's all we want, and we're not really pay attention to what's actually happening. But I think that's where we actually get roped in with millennials a lot, is that Gen Z, I was reading some posts, and basically the best summary that I saw is like, no, we're watching everything, like we're seeing what's going on, and we're sitting in the same boat as you. We think we're all like like I think our generation very much realizes it, like, doesn't matter what political angle you have on it, right? That just like things are backwards and about whatever and where we're going, and we need to figure out how to fix it, whether it's one way or the other, regardless of your political take on it. Like, that things are, they're falling apart.
My hope for Gen Z is that they can figure out how to disagree and still be friends. I feel like millennials have compartmentalized themselves so much so, like, oh, if you don't agree with me on this, then you can't be my friend. And now they have this very small pod of friends, and that's their entire world is surrounded by like-minded people.
Yeah.
And they have no tolerance for contrary opinion.
Yeah. And I think that we are. So, like, I'm obviously don't represent everybody when I say this, but my wife, we have, both of us get along typically pretty well with the Gen X generation, and we have conversations all the time with Gen X couples who our views in just general may not always align, right? And we get into these like topics and debates about different things and all of that stuff. But what I've noticed is that I don't think there's ever been a time where we're just like, no, you, like, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. Very much like open to, it seems to be very much more open conversation about this is how I feel, but coming from a place of like, this is what I grew up with and this is what I'm saying. And kind of understanding that both ways. And I don't know, it seems to be like the conversations are better and much less like, oh, you don't share the same belief as me, like I'm just gonna toss you to the side. So yeah, I mean, I think that your hope is what is actually happening, at least from my perspective and from what I've seen. Can't say that about everybody, but
yeah. And to be clear, what I'm talking about here is definitely generalities. Right? Yeah. And so when I talk about things, it's like most Gen Xers. It's not going to be every single one of them.
Right. And
just to keep that.
Yeah. And what I'm speaking about specifically is kind of from my experience and what I've seen. I don't know if it's all going like that, but from what I've seen, it seems to be we can have like the debates and conversations without, killing each other or just canceling each other and like, oh no, get out of here. Right.
Cancel culture is.
Yeah, cancel culture is really what the phrase needs to be.
And make it happen. I mean, is that where we like to do a hashtag?
Yeah, exactly. Hashtag cancel culture or something like that.
You have tweets or what?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do have a few more. I'm trying to remember where I left off. Gotta love that Gen Z ADHD brain.
ADHD, anxiety-filled.
You're giving me anxiety just staring at me, waiting for me.
I'm just going to stare. I'm going to stare at your ear. See if I can see.
Okay, so I think it's Gen Z's turn. So Collard Green said Gen Z culture is playing TikTok songs at a party and only knowing the words and dance to the part of the song that was popularized.
I see that.
I can tell you there are so many songs where I only know like the chorus and then that's it. I don't know the rest of the song. And you can pick out a spot of us, singing a song because they would be like singing the chorus, blah, 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 whatever. And then you just mumbling through the rest of the song. And then, the chorus is back again. Pick it up.
That's a skit waiting to happen, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your favorite genre of music?
My favorite genre?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite genre that I mostly listen to now is rap. However, I listened. So kind of based on my upbringing, I listened to a lot of there was a lot of like Christian contemporary music in my household, or like alternative Christian stuff. So like Christian rock and Christian
Skillet.
rap and all that stuff. So yeah, Skillet, for example, right? And then in high school, I went through this country phase.
Okay.
So I listened to a lot of country music all throughout high school and into the beginning of college, which I think was yesterday. And then, and then I started in college. I had some friends that introduced me to a lot of like rap and rock, and really started hitting, really started getting into rap over the last few years.
So answer me this. What is the difference between rap and hip hop?
Can I Google it?
Okay, because
So
I've been like lectured. That's not rap. That's hip hop. I was like, oh, okay. And then that's not hip hop. That's rap. It's like, okay. Well, somebody please explain the difference to me.
yeah, so I think there's a lot of music now, and country does this a lot too. In the country world, we have a saying for it. It's rap and country. It's crap.
Yeah.
But country's doing it a lot too. I think a lot of those genres are like, there's a lot that are really blending together. And so I think there's a lot of hip hop that has a lot of rap in it.
So maybe
And then vice versa.
So hip hop is what? Rap, techno, R&B.
Sure. I don't know what the definition is. I'm gonna see if I can find one. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of stuff lately that is blended. Like a lot of country is going like country hip hop or country rap. A lot of like the rap I listen to is like a mix of more, I guess, quote unquote traditional rap, but then there's a lot of hip hop involved too. So I don't really know what the actual definition is though.
I got him.
This isn't a good definition either.
So I predominantly listen to country. And the reason I ask that is like when you're talking about just the chorus and that kind of thing, what pops in my mind is the music you're listening to isn't telling a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about country music, why I like it the most, is it tends to tell this whole story.
Yeah, I think so. Personally, I think good country music does. There's a lot of country music now that is just my blue jeans, my beer, and my truck. It's very like that. Oh, let me just try to hit my demographic and not actually do country music. Mm-hmm. But good country music, I would agree, it typically does tell a story. And in my opinion, good rap and hip hop also does too. Rap typically has a lot of emotion behind it that tells a good story.
So let me interrupt you, if you don't mind.
No, I absolutely mind. It's fucking bullshit.
All right, mind your elders.
I'm gonna cry.
I've lost interest in rap because it's always sexualizing women.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about money, material things, and if you watch their videos, it's dudes surrounded by hot chicks in Beamers or Mercedes or something along those lines, and they're all still very angry, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, and so I was kind of like looking it up a little bit to answer your question and then kind of respond. let me answer your question about the differences,
Okay.
and then let me respond to what you just said. So I tried to go through a couple different definitions, but one of them is rap music is a combination of rhyming and poetry to a beat, and it's part of the hip hop genre. So hip hop is the overarching umbrella of rap, and then, or a bunch of different things, which supposedly includes rap. And I guess they're saying that like hip hop is more the culture, and then rap is inside of that.
Okay, so there's like mumble rap. There's different kinds of rap.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of like the overarching, and then rap is inside of it. But I think to your point, like what you were saying about, why you've kind of turned away from rap and how you feel about it, I think that's at least a lot of the rap that, in my opinion, that I listen to, because it's, grade A good stuff, is bussin', as we would say, or poppin'. Sorry,
poppin', bussin' tables.
So I think that good rap still is really emotional and tells a story. I don't think there's a lot of like NF, exactly, perfect example, right? NF just dropped a new album that's fucking amazing, and most of his rap typically tells some sort of story. Eminem did a great job at that too, taking his rap and telling some sort of story rather than just rapping about the normal, like what you just said, like how country tries to, pander their audience by talking about beer trucks and blue jeans.
Right.
Rap trying to pander their audience talking about sex, drugs, and, being a thug or whatever, right? Or being a gang member. I think they have I think a lot of music has that like key element, pieces of, we know that this sells to our key demographics, so let's just do this. And then you have really good people inside of that make like actual music still, which is what I like. Also, rap typically tends to, for me, it typically gets me going or like motivated, especially when I'm about to do something that's like more difficult, or when I'm driving into work. It kind of helps me like get amped up for work, where honestly country kind of makes me more want to like listen to at the end of the day to like wind down. So that's what I like about rap too. It kind of like amps me up and gets me going, and like go in and fucking beat everybody up. Okay, so the next one I have for Gen X is by Ashley. It says,
of course, Ashley. Freaking Ashley.
It says, I will never understand boomer/Gen X. I hate my wife humor.
You haven't met our wives.
And I think that's particularly funny because Gen Z is, they're not getting married at the same ages that past generations did, right? Like, obviously we're not that old, but from what I was reading and looking into, a lot of the average like marriage ages were around like 21, 22 typically in our past generations, but it's been dropping each one, right? But same with Gen Z. So like Gen Z is waiting. It seems to be waiting the longest to get married and things like that. So I don't think
do it at all.
Right, exactly. If we get married at all. So I think that it would be hard for us to understand that humor if we're not married to somebody.
Have you ever heard of the phrase playing the dozen?
No.
All right. So this goes back
to
my youth and actually Black culture.
Okay.
So playing the dozen is highlighted with your mama jokes.
Okay.
Right? Your mama's so big, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So that was popular when I was growing up.
Okay.
All right. So it's always, degrading kind of humor. And that's,
Gotcha.
And then and one side of our breath, we talk about our wives being our better halves, but then we also say old ball and chain, right? So it's in a weird way terms of endearment, even though it's...
So I definitely I definitely get that. Like I feel like the Gen Z generation is very much into that, like, oh, I'm gonna just completely tear you down and make fun of you all day long. But it really means that I love you and I care about you and like we're actually friends.
Yeah.
Rather than people that, you know, that are not my friends, I just talk to them like normal. Like
That's so I was in the Army, I was in the Navy, I was on sports teams.
drink out of an unopened drink.
If people are calling you only by your name, you are not part of the club.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that that's probably, I don't know that much about like the millennial or boomer generation as far as.
I think a millennial wrote that tweet and roped Gen X into the boomers because they're so all butthurt about the boomers.
Yeah. Well, they did start with, I'll never understand boomer / Gen X humor. So it seems like they roped them in together a little bit.
We don't like the boomers either.
Alrighty. Getting to the next one with Gen Z. This is the last one I have. From Ahmed. Gen Z thinks they're so much smarter than their parents for not falling for Facebook conspiracy theories, only to end up falling for TikTok conspiracy theories. Oh man. That one really hit home for me because honestly, like I have no counter against it. I think that that's happening quite a bit. They see the TikTok videos, whatever, and they're like, oh, that must be what's going on.
I don't have a TikTok account, so the only TikToks
videos just inadvertently. I have a TikTok account for this.
You're
gonna.
I don't know the law.
You're gonna be a star. You're gonna be a star.
But the only time I see TikTok videos is when I'm on my Facebook page and somebody shares it.
Of course. That's the only time you see TikTok videos. I have a buddy of mine, him and his wife were talking about this, and she's like, oh, I don't want to download TikTok. And he's like, you already fucking watch them all just through Facebook instead of on TikTok.
But China.
They don't need to use TikTok. They sent a goddamn balloon, and it worked perfectly fine and evaded everybody for most of its way through. Like, they don't need to use TikTok. They just was like, oh, we can distract them with TikTok and just fucking send a balloon, and it'll be fine. Nobody will ever expect the hot air balloon. Okay, so last tweet I have is from Natasha about Gen X, and it says, I just tried to kill a cockroach with Dove body spray. Now its name is Karen and won't stop talking about yoga.
Oh, Karens. Just so you know, Karens are not...
Yeah, you define them, please. Because we're trying to, but we're scared of them.
So a Karen is this overbearing, self-indulging, borderline narcissistic white woman with short hair and has entitlement issues.
Yeah. Typically the person that you see yelling at the kid who's just trying to check her out, or at...
Not even that. It's like, it could be 3:00 in the afternoon and she's across the street in her front yard trying to listen to her iPod, because I think that's the Karen's age would have an iPod.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Or maybe Spotify on her phone. That's how it works, right?
Yeah,
Spotify.
exactly.
Okay.
On your phone.
And then you have like your two kids playing in the kiddie pool, and she gets mad telling you to shut your kids up because they're making too much noise.
Yeah, because she's trying to listen to her Spotify playlist. Yeah.
And it's like, more people just need to look her dead in the eye and say, get off my lawn.
Yep. I think it's funny because there's like, I think the Karen is typically associated with like Gen X, but I think it's funny because I think most of Gen X and Millennial and Gen Z and maybe even Boomers don't want to associate them with anybody. Like, they're off over there. They're fucking doing their own thing.
In truth, they are the Gen X age, but Gen X don't like them. They're usually that cheerleader that got fat and their boyfriend got drunk and left them, or even worse, still around and they can't afford to separate.
Oh, man. That's all the tweets I got.
All right. So, for me, when I think of Gen Z, I think...
What you think of Gen Z?
when I think of Gen Z...
All right, we're going to specify there. All right. Put up my fighting hands.
I think of a uncommon amount of people that are ADHD, anxiety-ridden, fear-filled, sensitive people trying to make their way in this really confusing world because they have no idea how to maneuver around millennials.
Well, that hurt my feelings. All right. Get my comfort food.
Uh-oh.
My comfort.
Well, it comes in liquid form now.
My comfort drink.
Your soda pop.
My soda pop.
We couldn't afford the pods. You had to go for the...
Yeah, I can't afford the pods. Look, I'm not rich. Okay, fine. Well, these are my assumptions about you, sir. Not Gen X, just you.
Oh,
for your mean things that you said about me. So you guys are the Karen generation, just all the middle-aged white women yelling at the manager, yelling at the kid. You're upset about your own life and how it's going, so you just want to yell at everybody else about theirs. Super privileged. The boomers set you up all nice, and now you just feel like you fucking own the world around you. Like, whatever. We don't need to deal with you. Just kind of whatever, chillax. I don't need to do anything. I'm just gonna sit here and not deal with any of the crises that are around us. And then you want to take all of your guilty, subconscious things and put them all over Facebook and use it as your personal diary. I think the biggest problem that we have with, and this is f***ing for all of you, not just you, is the hypocritical, practice what you preach. Everybody wants to tell us, oh, you're doing this wrong and blah, 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 and you're doing these things. And you say it's out of experience and love, but really, in reality, you just want to control our f***ing lives. F***ing bullshit. That's my rant. Damn it.
We don't want to control your lives. We want you to move out of the basement.
No. It's my basement. F*** you.
So
maybe I like living in the basement. You ever think about that, Dad?
I made it too comfortable. But I think, so if we're going to be real, I think all stereotypes have some sort of foundation in reality, and then it just kind of gets exaggerated.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everything you said was true.
But I think there's
but it's fine.
Truth in there's an increase in ADHD in Gen Z versus Gen X. There's definitely more anxiety in Gen Z than Gen X. But then, I kind of have some thoughts onto why that would be the case, but I would like to hear your either defense or reasoning or rebuttal to my stereotypical comments.
Yeah. So I think I don't think that you're wrong necessarily in the saying that our generation is anxiety filled and lots of ADHD and anxiety, right? I do think regardless of your political affiliation, the the more you test, the more cases you're gonna have.
Yeah.
But I do think that one thing that kind of plays in, I'm sure, to that statistic, and this is just going. I haven't done any research into this, so this isn't like a proven fact, but just kind of my own personal take on part of this. I think that our generation is really big on mental health and being able to share, professionally what you're going through and the things that you're dealing with, right? I think more than any other generation, we're very much, hey, like, if you need help, go get it. Go talk to somebody that's a professional. Don't just sit on whatever it is that you're dealing with, small, big, whatever. Like, go and talk to somebody about it. And I think part of that comes with the statistics leaning more towards us having more anxiety because we're the ones reporting our anxiety, right? So we're very much that generation of actively, like, this is what's going on with me, and typically very open about it. And maybe that's not entirely the case, but
I think there's definitely there's ability there,
right? So I think that from that perspective, we're just open and reporting about it, whereas maybe in past generations it wasn't. For certain. It wasn't okay to report about it, first of all.
Gen X, if you didn't try to kill yourself, you weren't going to see therapist.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. And I think that's something that, I don't know if that's that disputed, that, like, it doesn't need to be to the point of you actively trying to harm yourself or commit suicide to go and see someone and talk about it. And I think that that's a big thing for us, and that kind of leads into the whole, like, we're filled with anxiety, and, like, well, I think a lot of people had anxiety. We're just talking about it a lot more to people, which I think kind of plays into that.
Also, I agree. I think from what I was thinking on it is, you guys are bombarded with media. I think the world and the country is a much safer place than what mass media and everything is showing you. Everything from your phones, your laptops, TV, that kind of stuff, is all this negativity all around. And then your friends are saying that kind of stuff, and then they're feeding onto it. So now even on your social thing, it's this negativity or conflict or something.
Yeah, and I don't disagree about that either. The media, whether it's when you were watching news as a kid or when I watch it, is very much focused on the negative things that are happening.
But you get so much.
That's what I'm saying.
So
yeah.
For us growing up, I remember we had this guy named Walter Cronkite. Mm-hmm. What he said is everything that was going on in the world. He had 60 Minutes was a 1-hour show that told you what the problems were in the world, right? You guys have 60 minutes every hour of the day. We had 60 minutes once a day.
Right. And that's what I mean. Like, we don't just have the evening news that we're watching.
Right.
The news is on 24/7 now, which most of us, we don't watch it, but it's on 24/7. We have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat. All of those have their own sets of, like, newsreels, but people that are publicizing what's going on in the world, people that are giving their own takes on what's going on in the world, YouTube, and a lot of it reports on the negative. There's very little, and maybe it's more than, what we're let into, but most of what ends up on our feed is negative shit about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I would agree. I think that we get bombarded with that. I think another part of it is, too, something I've noticed recently, and this is more personal, but I think it probably a lot of people in my generation can relate. I get on TikTok and start scrolling, and 80% of my feed, whether I've liked the video or not, is about everybody supposedly escaping the rat race, right? Everybody is, supposedly making thousands of dollars doing this shortcut, doing this way, selling this thing, e-commerce, influencer, TikTok, whatever the case may be, drop shipping, whatever the new buzzword is for the week, right? And they make it seem like, oh, everybody's doing this. You're the only one not doing it, and you're missing out. And it's the time for it is going to be gone super quick. So you better get in on it. Otherwise, you're not going to be rich like me, right? And whether they're rich or not, and whether in the back of your head, you know that they're rich or not, or they're just full of shit, I think that causes a lot of anxiety, at least in me personally, because I'm like, wait, am I not like really where I should be? Should I be is there really like an easy way to just use the internet and make all of this money? And the reality is that, is it easier in some ways? Sure. But are all these people just making millions of dollars? No, because you walk outside and most of them are just stuck in the same shit show that I am. Right. So, but being bombarded with that all the time, making you feel like you have to be doing something right now. And if you're not doing it, even the stuff that's supposed to be more motivational, like, I don't know if you've heard of Gary Vee, but Gary Vee is a really big social media influencer, really big on TikTok. His whole thing is like, oh, don't get so anxious. You've got plenty of time, right? You got plenty of time to do all these things. But then some of his stuff gets into like, well, you should be like trying these new things all the time and like wasting your 20s like grinding and just trying different things, right? Which for me is on the flip side of like, so if I'm not trying a new thing every day, then I'm like just fucking wasting my 20s, right? So I think there's a lot of that going around that just I know it makes me anxious. Whether I should be anxious about it or not is one thing, but I know that it bothers me and I see it all the time. So I can imagine lots of people my age see the same thing and they're like, oh shit, like I don't know if I'm doing enough, or am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? And I think we get bombarded with that a lot more than any other generation, especially growing up with now social media and phones in our pocket. So
your generation, that's what they were born into.
Right.
We didn't have to, you don't know a time without internet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now it's all quiet.
It took us down a dark,
super serious rant moment. Oh man. So you kind of laid something out for me, so I want to make sure that you also have the chance to respond to one of the things I said, and specifically, I think, walking around I think it would be interesting to hear your perspective. So one of the things that is, I think, opinion of my generation for Gen X, is that you were privileged because the boomers set you up well. So I'm curious to hear your take on that.
I disagree strongly.
That's where you lie when you have that little check marks, and I disagree strongly on that.
Yeah, as the fourth box.
Running out of
strongly disagree.
Juice.
No, I think the boomers, because they're that free love generation, Vietnam War, flower power crap, and they did not love anything more than they love themselves. I mean, if you look at it, so and I was looking at this, free love, protesting wars, racial strife, right? Then these people get into political office and suddenly we have a protested war, racial strife. I think they just recreated their glory days using mass media to stir up all of this bullshit that's causing you guys anxiety and me to be pissed off.
Right.
So I don't think they set us up for anything. I mean, we were the latchkey kids. They were off working, doing other things. We had to take care of ourselves. And that's why we don't really give a damn about the boomers, because we had to do it on our own.
Right.
I was in freaking 6th grade cooking my own dinner, that type of thing. So I don't think if they set us up for anything, it was to teach us how to be independent and how to rely on ourselves so that we can set ourselves up for something.
Right.
So,
and I think that's kind of where, like, it's called Fuck Your Generation, but really the generation that everyone says F you to is the boomers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that that's an interesting point because, the boomers are the one now that are taking advantage of all the things that their parents and themselves set themselves up for. Whereas we're all like, are we even going to get Social Security? Like, are we even going to get these things? And I don't think they set anyone up, really.
No, I mean, they're 84 years old and still running for a re-f***ing tire. Right? Can you not get out of the limelight and let somebody else have a shot? You're so immersed in your own opinion and your own self-importance that you can't ride that horse into the damn sunset.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Everybody on our side has this dream of like, oh, I can retire and relax. And they're like, I'm going to retire, relax, and all of you with me while I'm doing it too. I'm going to stay in the limelight and just ride that shit all the way through.
They have like 4 houses and the kids are like, all right, so when they die, I'll have this for my inheritance. Like, and they're like, nope, I'm going to sell all these things. I'm going to outlive the inheritance. Screw you people.
I'm just bearing my money with me. You guys. Yep.
And then to make themselves feel good, they're leaving their vast wealth to charity so the kids don't get it.
Uh-huh. And like, oh, well, you guys didn't work for it, so just fucking leave it to charity.
I'm a good person. Look, I'm giving all this to charity.
Oh, man. Yep. I don't disagree. I think most people don't disagree. Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to go onto a political rant there, but there's so much opportunity to.
Well,
and it's on both sides.
I don't think it's a political rant, right? Both sides agree that you guys are way too fucking old to be running. So put someone else in, please. Like, middle ground. I don't want super young, and I don't want someone super fucking old either.
Exactly. And my thing is, if you're old enough to receive your full Social Security benefits, you should not be allowed to run for president.
Yeah.
Or you should be allowed to run for office. Screw it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the problem that all of us are facing now is that we're, running into this situation where even with all of us in and all of us starting to, take the reins and vote, we still have just this abundance of old men that are just sitting in office.
It's like, I can barely represent your generation. All right? I can barely do that. All right? You think an 84-year-old dude can represent your generation?
No, they can't even type generation. Like, over here, one fingering.
I know that there. Where do you put the paper?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
So this would be a good time to sign off.
Time to sign off and sign away. Well, do you want to sign off properly and try some?
No, I think I'm good on the Tide in any form.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I used to use Tide products until your generation came out. And now I've switched to Cheer.
Fucking more for me.
They were just cheering you on with the Tide Pods.
Hey, so they're delicious. It's like little Jell-O candies. Disclaimer, don't eat Tide Pods unless you really, really want to.
We're going to get sued.
Yeah, well, that means we were successful. Bye, guys. Thank you for hopping in, listening to the first episode of Fuck Your Generation. Appreciate you guys all listening in.
Peace be the journey.